Today I have with me Lyn McDonald, and Lyn is an inspirational writer of children's books. Lyn's website, The Greenlight Pages, inspires everyone by promoting positivity, growth, and healing. Lyn resides in Delaware, where she took a leap of faith to write her first book, The Great Tree and the Ladybug. Hi, Lyn. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Deb. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. So I'd like to ask two questions to get us warmed up. If you
Sure.
could have any superpower, which one would you have?
I would love to fly because I think just being able to see the world from a different perspective that you wouldn't normally be able to do, I think that would be really pretty amazing. And to be able to go places that not everybody could go. I think it would really open you up to a whole other perspective. And as a writer, I think that would give me some really good inspiration.
Right? Oh, absolutely. I like that. All right. So what is your favorite app on your phone currently?
Well, I try not to be on my phone as much, but I would have to say Canva is probably my favorite because I started to do a lot more with Instagram and my Greenlight Pages Facebook page, and Canva's given me the opportunity to be creative that way and share, my writing, my poetry, even like flyers for, like my book and stuff like that. Like it's provided a lot of templates and things like that. So I probably use that one the most.
That definitely is an extensive and intensive app. I use that one
It
also.
is. There's a lot I don't know for sure. I just scratched the surface with it. But that's probably been like my favorite so far with, at first I was using a lot of their photos and stuff. And then lately I've been trying to use more of my own photography.
Oh, there you go.
So like when I go out in nature and take pictures rather than, using a random photo from Canva or whatever, like I'm trying to use like my own backgrounds and things like that. So, it's been a great tool for just being able to create and then share your creations. I've really enjoyed it.
I agree with that. And you don't absolutely have to be a very creative person. That's why I like it, because I can go in and get ideas and then I can change up what they offer.
Right. I mean, there's a lot I would like to maybe branch out with like animation type stuff. I haven't really spent a lot of time with that, same thing with like Instagram and the reels. I've made a few, but there's just so much out there now that you can actually do. And people are, they're sharing a lot of their creativity in really amazing ways. And I'd like to continue to learn more and, just, see what I can come up with.
That's your creative side.
Well, it's like that. It's cool to be able to foster it,
right,
in ways that like you can't do by yourself. Exactly. So I think that's what's been great is, like I have the creativity and the ideas, but being able to execute them, that's where I'm aware of like my limitations. And so having apps like Canva and, and Instagram and like other, platforms where you can actually
explore it all.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It's been really cool.
Did you always love to write?
I would say I did from an early age. Yes. It definitely was something that I felt pulled to do. It did come naturally to me for a while. Like when I was younger, I was really fascinated by poetry. At that time, it was more of like the rhyming poetry. I didn't start to branch out to more just expressing myself, like, regardless of whether it was rhyming or not, until I got older. But yeah, I mean, like stories and it definitely, there was something in me that I knew when I was younger. And then I just I kind of lost it a little bit along the way as I was growing up, but journaling was always something that really helped me on my, my healing journey and my journey back to myself, because I definitely, I did what I'm sure a lot of people do. Like you kind of lose yourself along the way. And writing for me has been, my way of getting back, to who I was always meant to be.
So was it journaling poetry that you were writing before you had the idea to write a children's book or to write a book?
Well, I actually wrote the story for the children's book years and years ago. Short stories, like those kind of came naturally to me. Like the inspirational stories, like they kind of came naturally to me, and picture books just seemed to be the best way to actually bring them to life. So it wasn't a plan that I was going to be like a children's book author. It just, based on how I write, that seemed to be the best way to express it. And I've come to really appreciate that style of writing because I like having illustrations to support my words. That's been really cool to kind of see how that's evolved.
Did you sketch any of your illustrations yourself as you were going along?
I did not. At first, well, because I do love to draw. I'm just not a natural, artist that way. I do have to look at stuff. And so like, I'm definitely fascinated by people that can just, they can just, pen to paper and boom, go create an entire world on, just from their mind. Like I haven't had that gift, but, I did love to draw as a kid. And so I do have on a piece, because I've always been in the restaurant industry for a very long time. So I always had those guest check, and I had a sketch of the tree with a ladybug with, the original title for the book was called The Mimosa and the Ladybug, because it was based on a mimosa tree that I planted with my dad in our backyard in North Carolina when I lived there. And so the original title was The Mimosa and the Ladybug, which I later changed to The Great Tree and the Ladybug. But I do have I'm not sure where it is, but I do have a guest check piece of paper with that image on it. And I actually did a few years later, or even like, I guess when I was having the book illustrated, by my illustrator, I think I actually have, I sketched the tree with like colored pencils.
Oh, wow.
And, maybe I'll include like some of my own artwork or, at some point, but I ended up not following through with that. But someday down the road, maybe I'll tackle it. You never know. Never say never.
Yeah. I was wondering, did it help you with the process of writing the story itself to have, that illustration alongside your writing process for the Ladybug?
Well, it was kind of, because it's like the writing should be done before the illustration process even begins. So what was kind of cool, I allowed, because my illustrator, it was a friend of mine. We practiced yoga together at a studio on Long Island. And so this was honestly her first illustration attempt, and it was my first book creation attempt. So we were kind of learning together. But so I basically gave her creative control over that. I was curious to see how she envisioned my words coming to life. And it was really cool to kind of see because drawing and art and painting, like that's a whole different medium.
Right.
So to see her creativity coming through, and then my words being along it and stuff, we kind of rolled with it together, which was really, really cool. And then I ended up, when the book was finished when I decided to redesign it. And so at that point in time, it was more of like, I was shifting some of the words to go along with her illustrations.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah, absolutely.
But now I'm kind of like, now that I've put together a team of people to kind of help me on like my next books and things like that, I kind of know what to do to kind of guide the illustrators and things like that. And so, because my next illustrator is going to be, she's my best friend from college that we're doing this together. And she's an amazing artist, but also she's never illustrated before. So now I'm in a better position to, guide her on that journey and stuff. But, I look at it like, I don't want someone telling me how to write. So I want them to have that freedom too.
Right.
Like, that's their talent and I know I don't have that gift. So I don't want to put them in a creative bubble. I want them to be able to, take the words and like, how do you envision this? And, then can we, put our talents together to make it even better.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What a great process. So let's just you're in Delaware now, but what was the journey like for you? Where were you? What did you do that led up to you moving to Delaware?
So it was honestly completely random and not planned at all, which, sometimes life will do that to you, and it could be the best thing for you. COVID was the catalyst. It was beginning of 2020, and my parents had, they had made the decision, I want to say maybe a year or so prior to that they were, going to retire and move to Delaware. So they were having a house built. and they were closing on their house the first week of March. COVID happened, I want to say that third week of March. And, we were told that everybody's job was shutting down for 2 weeks. So I looked at it as a 2-week vacation where I could go and visit my parents in Delaware in their new house.
Right.
And so I packed enough stuff for 2 weeks and came to Delaware. And, that 2 weeks turned into 3 months. And when I ended up going back to New York, I had made the decision it wasn't the right place for me to be anymore. During the 3 months that I was down here in Delaware, I got back to myself. The book had already been in the works at that point, but I had pushed it aside because of my fear. Those 3 months really gave me a chance to, play with my website and get back to writing and really just sort of ask myself, what do you want? I knew going back to New York was not what I wanted, but it was what I had. And so I did, but I was very unhappy. And then I had to make the decision, like, this is not what I want. And so I came to Delaware with the blessing of my parents. They have been amazing, absolutely amazing. They basically got me on my feet and helped me to get the book in its final stages to where, I was able to put it out in the world and move forward with that. And yeah, here I am 3 years later. I'm still in Delaware, and I'm moving forward on my next journey. So this is a transition place for me. This is not where I'm going to stay.
Journey continues on after.
Continues. Yep.
Absolutely. Were you working on your website while you were writing on your book, or did the website come into play after you had written the book?
So the book was already written.
Okay.
And then it was, the website was kind of an avenue for me to share it. So, I knew that I wanted to have a website, but I didn't want a traditional author website because I wanted it to be just more than about me. My hope is that, as things progress and, as the future unfolds, is that, it'll be maybe a collaborative space for, other creatives to share their inspiration with the world, because the whole premise behind the website was to share inspiration, positivity, growth, and healing through creative expression.
Right.
And writing for me is my vehicle for that. But, there are artists, musicians, there's so many ways that you can do that and inspire others. And I wanted to create a website that would sort of kind of bring all of these things together and maybe inspire other people to be able to have that in their own life as well.
Yeah, that's a great platform to have. And the Green Light Pages is the name of the website.
Yes.
And each of the words has a meaning to you.
It has a meaning. Yes. So, and that's kind of cool thing too, is that, it is symbolic to me. Like I know what it means to me personally, but, I'm hoping that, when people come to the website and check it out, like maybe those words will spark, meaning for them as well. But, the whole thing, that kind of inspired it was, at the time I was really striving to live a green life. Nature has always been my connection to my writing. I find that I am very inspired when I'm, among trees or, by the beach or just going on a hike. So most of my writing has taken place in nature. To kind of include that in my, my website name, I think that was really important for me, and green itself has so many different meanings, and just the color itself and, representative of the heart chakra, representative of just, the healing light, and then, something as simple as like going for it,
right?
Move forward, green, go. And that's kind of been what I needed, in the later stages of the book creation was, don't stop, keep going. And because it's very hard to kind of keep sometimes moving forward when you're self-doubt and your fear, just your inner dialogue of criticism and, or the fear of outside criticism comes into play. And you just sort of have to make a decision. Are you going to go or are you going to stop? And I had a lot of start stops along my journey, but that green was like my motivator of like, no, like you're doing something good. So
absolutely
keep doing it, don't be afraid. And I think the more I do it, the easier it has become, but it's definitely been a lifelong battle for me. And, The Great Tree and the Ladybug, that book was written, I want to say the first version of it was back in 2010. So she's been around for a while, and it's just taken me a while to go through my journey to get to this point where I was able to share her. So
yeah, and you are not the only one with those fears or the lack of self, or do you think you don't have the self-confidence to do something? And going through your website and reading what you have, and for me, the feelings that I get from your website is so motivational, inspirational, because we had talked prior to sitting down tonight about my own anxiety and fear and working through things, and I'm sure this happens with you too. People have no idea, people have no idea that, sometimes it's that anxiety and you can talk yourself out of things. And so I'm so glad that you remember the green light and keep going forward.
Well, and that's where like the support system has been, huge for me as well. Like, like my family and my friends and, people, when I finally had the courage to start sharing my writing, because I kept it to myself for a very long time. When I finally started to have the courage, to just let other people see it, like the validation of it helped them, or it sparked something in them. It just sort of makes you want to keep doing that, and then, I mean, you do have your people that may not resonate with your words. And I think that's been important too, because it's helped me to get back to, myself, and to not hold my self-worth based on someone else's opinion. Just because I created something, that doesn't mean that it's going to resonate with everybody, but it also doesn't mean that like my creation is bad or that I'm bad. And so I think that's been part of the journey now at this stage. Like the more that I share it, the more open you are to, the positive and the negative side of that. And either way, it shouldn't affect you yourself. And so that's been, I think, part of this next phase of, overcoming the fear aspect is, not to take those negative things to heart, and to just sort of keep going, because there will be those that don't resonate, but those that do. And even one person, like that's one more person that maybe needed those words at that time, and you don't know what the ripple effect will be. That's kind of like where we're at now,
Right. So is the second book also based on your journey,
It is. And it's so funny because I've had a journey with this one too. And, and that's why I'm definitely a big believer in divine timing for things. Sometimes we want them to move faster than they're meant to move. My second book, When the Walls Came Down, is, very indicative of that. Honestly, that was a big, personal, learning experience for me too, because I, after the, the first book and then moving to the second book, the second one was coming about in 2021. So my best friend, she was starting illustrations on that. I had it written. We were going with it. I had a book designer on board, like things were moving forward. Something with the writing, it wasn't working. And I had it edited by two different people and taking their suggestions and this. And I'm like, it just, something wasn't working with it. I ended up making the decision to kind of pull the project.
Oh, wow.
And it was, it was difficult to do because I mean, the story is very close to my heart. And honestly, that story, the original version of that story, helped me to move from North Carolina back to New York.
Wow.
Like it was the catalyst for me to like pick up and go, because I realized I wasn't happy where I was. And so I needed a change. And that story was my motivator. Something wasn't working with the writing. And I'm like, I can't force this. And I don't want this to become what it's not meant to be. And so I stopped it. And, my best friend was very gracious because she had put time in, and she's like, no, like, it's okay. Like when you're ready, we'll get back. And in the meantime, she has now created her own platform with her art, which is really awesome. She's deciding to move forward as an artist. And so she's doing commissions for animal portraits and all sort of stuff like that. And then, we're hoping to get back to this new book in the new year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That is our plan. So basically I ended up taking time off from it. And this past summer, I rewrote it, had it edited, and it was more in line with the original story that I was trying to tell. And it felt right. And I sent it to my friend again. And she's like, Lyn, this is it. Like, this is like, you fixed what needed fixing, and it's just better. And so, so that's, it's ready. And we're waiting for her to, be able to do, which is fine, because she waited for me for 2 years. So I'm like, what, you do what you got to do. And when it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But I'm excited about that one, because that one is all about following the path of your heart, honoring your happiness, and knowing who you are and what's right for you, even when it looks different from everybody else. And so I think this story is going to be very powerful. It will also be a picture book, but I think it's going to be intended for a little bit older audience than my first book. It's a little more introspective, but I think it's very much needed, because we tend to sometimes get so caught up in what we think we should be doing or what everybody else is doing that we forget. We forget who we are, and we forget what's important to us and what we're here for. Sometimes you're lucky and you remember, but then you have the other hurdle to encounter once you remember is, do you walk away from what you have and start over, or do you stay knowing that you're not going to be happy?
Exactly. So many people struggle with that.
And that was my big decision to even come here, because it's like I had my life in New York. I had a lot of hobbies there. I had a job I loved. Like things were okay, but I wasn't happy. And so you have these choices to make. And I think, people tend to get stuck. Unfortunately, our society just sort of thinks it's okay to wait till retirement to start living. And I personally think that's one of the worst things you can do, because you're basically just sacrificing your life in the hopes that you're going to make it to retirement, and you're not guaranteed that.
No, absolutely not. And if I had waited to do that, if I had waited to retirement, which I'm, that's a few years down the road, I wouldn't have started R2RB. I wouldn't be doing my podcast series. I wouldn't have 2 radio shows right now. So yeah, you definitely have to, we have to change that thought process. You're right. And do what you love to do when you feel like doing it.
Right.
Otherwise you wouldn't have taken the path you have taken to where you are in Delaware, and right. And you were
not even close. I would have settled. And I had been talking about leaving New York back in 2019. So it's like, I knew that it wasn't where I wanted to be, but it was just, you just get used to where you're at.
Yeah, because it's the fear of the unknown. Am I making the right decision? And unless you take that leap of faith, as you did, and came to Delaware, and the great tree and the Ladybug, and at the time you had a partnership of sorts with the brewing company that you.
Oh no, that actually happened afterwards. So afterwards, that's a really cool story too.
Yeah.
I paid for my first print run at the end of 2020. So I started selling the version 1 of The Great Tree and the Ladybug back at the end of 2020. I started doing vendor events in Delaware in 2021. So most of 2021 was spent, doing different vendor events like locally and, up and down Delaware, sometimes Chesapeake City in Maryland, like, local.
Right.
But through that, I had met someone that put me in contact with one of the partners at Revelation who did Thankful Thursdays at Hudson Fields. Her name's Kyle Schaefer. She's become a great friend of mine. Love her dearly. She's been a huge supporter of me, and I feel truly blessed. Yeah, I was vending at Hudson Fields for most of the summer with Thankful Thursdays. And then she even was like, if you want to come Fridays and Saturdays, bring your book, sell your book, just, and she was just really, really great. And so I had made an awesome connection with her. And when I was looking for, a job to supplement my income, at the time, they thought the Georgetown Brewery was going to be open back in 2022, which unfortunately it was not, but they needed bartenders for Rehoboth. And so I was like, I can start tomorrow. And she, I went, interviewed, they hired me that day. And then I started working in February of 2022 at Revelation in Rehoboth. And so I've been with them almost 2 years now. And back this past summer, she was like, Lyn, if you want to put your book at the bar, put your book at the bar, sell your book. I was not going to turn down that offer. No. And, because I self-published myself and, I made a lot of rookie mistakes. So my unit cost for my book was very high, which eliminated me being able to do any sort of consignment with anybody. I was basically stuck with all my copies that I had to sell myself. So her giving me this opportunity, it allowed me to really unload my inventory, which I did. I sold I would say close to 1,000 books. Not all of them at the brewery, but the last, I would say maybe 400 or 500 of them.
There you go.
400, close to that, like at the brewery, which was amazing.
That is
and
amazing.
it's given me the opportunity to now be able to pay for my second print run, which is with the redesigned version.
Oh.
So I'm hoping that'll be ready in the next month or so. I just sent the files back to my printing company, and
oh, cool.
Yeah, hoping that'll be ready soon. But she gave me this amazing opportunity, and I've established a following through Revelation.
There you go.
So I'm very blessed about that. I have people coming in and they ask me all the time, like, how are things going with the book? And when's the next book coming? And it's been really amazing to organically create a readership, which I would not have had I not had this door opening through Revelation. So I'm just truly grateful to them.
That is fantastic. And I say this often, that Delawareans are great supporters of each other.
They are. I've been truly blessed. I mean, the biggest thing for me was that I just had to show up.
Right.
And that was a big thing about overcoming my fear, was having those hesitations of, should I go? Should I do this? Should I say yes to this opportunity? Should I say yes? And I found that, like, once I put myself out there, other avenues and other doors started becoming available to me. And I've been very fortunate here in Delaware because people have been so kind. And, if they weren't able to help me, they knew somebody that could. And I was just very floored by just the support. Especially as from somebody who's not from here, like, I didn't expect to be embraced with open arms like I have been. And that's one thing that I will never, never look back. I just feel truly, blessed to have these connections here. And, they gave me a family here in Delaware.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my parents have retired here too, and I've been here 2 years myself. And with the podcasting and then with the broadcasting, anytime I need to reach out to somebody, everybody's very supportive of us and the podcast, and I can reach out to anybody, and they'll, like you said, if they don't know it, they'll find somebody for me. So yeah, and every little town here, everybody knows each other. They'll support each other. Yeah, especially down in the south.
It's a really nice community, and I've come to really appreciate Rehoboth because our first year being here, like with COVID and everything was kind of shut down, and we were more secluded, and coming to a new place and not knowing it, and then the first time you experience it is through a very difficult time. It's like we didn't really get to appreciate it. So it's like that whole first year of being here was just sort of that was more of just, like I said, it was an introspective year. It wasn't really an out there in the world year, and getting to know Rehoboth a little bit more and kind of seeing what it has to offer. Like I get now why people come here. It's a really great community, and I feel very fortunate to be here right now at this point in time. And,
I agree.
Granted.
Yeah, that whole area. So let me ask you this. Do you have a favorite part of writing?
Ooh, favorite part of writing. I would say when it just hits me, that when that inspiration comes and you just can't put your pen down. It doesn't happen all the time. That's how I know it's special. But when it happens and you just get this surge of inspiration, like you just can't stop. That I think that's my favorite writing, because that's the real writing. That's me not trying to manipulate it. That's the writing coming through because it's meant to come through, and it just flows, and I don't have to fight it. I don't have to force it. It just naturally comes. And I think, and the rush I get from it, I mean, it's just so authentic and real. Like that is, I love those moments. Sometimes I never know when they're going to hit. And I think that's why I'm really working on getting more balance in my own life now, and working on my self-care practice for myself so that I can encourage more of those moments to come organically, as opposed to me creating a setting when I think they'll happen. Okay. Because if there's anything I learned about writing, it's that you don't need to force it. Yes, you can have a writing practice that, you can build that yourself, but when it's meant to happen, it will happen. And it doesn't matter if you are in your home. It doesn't matter if you're outside. It doesn't matter what the conditions are. You could have 1 million people around you or nobody around. It doesn't matter. When the writing is supposed to come, it will. And I had moments where, like, at night, it's just hours, like at night, in the middle of the night, And I just go, and it's because that's when it's supposed to happen. So,
with both books, did you write straight through, or did you have
so The Great Tree and the Ladybug, honestly, I want to say was written in about 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I was in my backyard in North Carolina. I had built a garden back there. That was kind of like my safe space, my sanctuary. I did a lot of healing there. And my favorite tree was this mimosa tree that me and my dad planted when we'd grown it from a seed. And I had it in my kitchen for about a year or so. And then it got to the point where she was ready to be transplanted outside. So one summer, me and him, we did it. We did it together. It was like a father-daughter thing. It was really great. And, I got to watch that tree grow. And there was one year, I want to say it had to have been like November timeframe or something, really late for ladybugs to be around. But there was this one ladybug, and all the leaves had fallen off this mimosa tree. And so it was just bare. And there's this single ladybug climbing up the trunk of this tree. And I just watched this happen. And I had this moment of like, I just had to write this story. And I literally wrote the story in like 5 minutes. It's like, because it just came through. And I used that story for a really long time for myself to kind of help me to overcome my own fear and to, inspire me to fly.
That's great.
When I needed to. But yeah, it came quick. That one came quick. And then, like I said, since then I've edited it and things like that. But the story itself was written very, very quickly.
Isn't it ironic, though? You end up in Delaware and the Delaware ladybug.
Well, and that's the thing. I didn't know that. That was one of the things that I found really funny, is that it was some of the people that were like buying the book were like, did you know that the state bug is the, and I'm like, I had no idea. It's kind of cool. I actually put that in my redesigned version. I have a ladybug and tree fact page like in the back. And I did include that as like one of the facts, like because it's the state bug of a few states. So, which is kind of ironic. I think it was like Massachusetts was one, which I've lived there.
Right.
Delaware is one, I lived there, and Tennessee is one, and I'm going to be moving there at some point. Part of my next journey is I bought land in Tennessee with some of my really good friends from New York.
How cool.
So
Very cool.
Eventually we will be making our way down there.
And I encourage anybody that's listening to go look up the mimosa tree. So we had a mimosa tree in our yard when I was growing up. It is so beautiful.
And so it's kind of cool. Obviously, like, we don't have that house anymore. We've since sold that house. But by the time I left, that tree from a small seed was like taller than me. And it was really, really cool to watch it, get its first, flowers and all this stuff. But when I moved here to Delaware as a gift for my dad I think it was either Father's Day or his birthday or something like that, we found a mimosa tree at one of the local, like, the
nurseries.
It's actually a cool mimosa because it's like a reddish one. So it's not all green leaves. They're like reddish and like different colors. So it kind of looks like sunsetty and stuff like that. It was really cool.
Oh my gosh. I'll have to look for those. All right. So let me ask you this question. If you could spend the day with any author, who would you choose? So that one is a toss-up, because I have two authors that have been, really, really inspirational, and they've made such a difference on my journey. I would have to say Paulo Coelho and Mitch Albom. Like, they're just two of my favorites. And, to spend the day with them and not even ask them questions, but just to listen to what they have to share, I think it would just be amazing. Because their words were life-changing. Like all of their books, every book that I've read by them has been impactful in one way or another to my life. And I love the way they write. Like they have this amazing way of writing. And, I strive to be like them. Either them or both would be awesome. Right. I would definitely do both. What pearls of wisdom would you pass along to someone wanting to get started with their writing, with writing their first book? Just write. Absolutely, like the writing part, in all honesty, that's the easy part. The hard part is the self-publishing part. And so that is where I would encourage other, authors to really learn as much as you possibly could learn about the self-publishing process, but to also be mindful of the information that you're getting. Because there are a lot of people out there that will share what they know. It doesn't mean that it's the best advice to be taking. And so I'm still learning a lot of this myself. Like I said, I made a lot of rookie mistakes on my journey with my first book, which is why I had to redesign it. I'd encourage other writers
do your research first. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Because of my fear, I felt like I had to go it alone because it was easier than asking the wrong questions or, putting yourself out there for criticism and all this stuff. So it's kind of like I kind of did it closeted. And in doing that, I made a lot of mistakes that I could have avoided. My best advice to them is, there are a lot of groups for support for self-published writers now. You can get a world of information from there. Like I said, though, just be mindful of who you're listening to, just ask your questions and do your due diligence. There's a lot of support, and because a lot more people are doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
It's an avenue there. It's an option. Whereas, back in the day, like, you had to wait to be traditionally published, and you weren't guaranteed to be traditionally published. Whereas now it's like anybody that has a story can make a book.
Right.
Just a matter of how are you going to do it, and how can you do it when you do it well. Just do your research.
On your website, you also have poetry.
I do.
Your poetry.
It is my poetry. Yep.
And a blog, and your blog posts.
I do. The blog is something I have to be honest, I have neglected the past couple of years. I would actually like to get back to that. That's definitely something. Why I created the website the way I did it was because I wanted to include a blog where it was just an opportunity for me to share my writing, in another form. So I really like that about how I could do that and link it to my website, which was really cool. I started to share some of the poetry because I really got into poetry again. I want to say back in 2021, I found a beautiful poetry community on Instagram, and it wasn't planned at all. It just, I just ended up connecting with just some other poets there. And, like, there's a lot of poetry prompts on Instagram that, like, different groups and stuff will share. And then I was very inspired. And so I kept writing, and then I would share it. And then I kept writing, and then I would share it. And it's like that community is just so supportive. And so it really got me back in that writer's mindset and reignited my love for poetry. And so I was like, oh, I should maybe share some of this on my website. Like I said, I'm going to be revamping things, and I want to freshen it up a bit and maybe add some more stuff, because there's definitely a lot of things that I've written since then and stuff. It's been really cool because poetry, there's so many types of poetry, and I didn't know that until I met these people on Instagram and encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone with that too, because some forms of poetry came easier than others, and really got my love of poetry to get reignited. And that was really cool. And it helped me to make some new friends, that were, some of them were in different parts of the world.
Isn't that great?
It's really cool, So Instagram, not only reignited my love for poetry, but it reignited my love for social media, because that Facebook was becoming very toxic to me. And Instagram, I still, like, most of the people that show up on my feed, it's other poets. And so it's like, I'm constantly flooded by other creativity, and I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's cool to see that there are people that are sharing.
Yeah.
They're out there and they're sharing, and they're putting themselves out there, and they're trying to, to say something. And it's been very inspiring to me. And that's encouraged me to want to keep being, inspirational to others.
Well, good, because and don't stop, because I've read the poetry, I've been reading the blogs, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So yes, definitely continue. And when you're not writing, what do you like to do?
I am trying to figure that out here in Delaware, because, I had all that in New York. I was taking Kung Fu classes. I had piano lessons. I had my yoga studio, and here I do have a yoga studio here, Dimitri Yoga. Love her, love them. So that's been really good. I kind of got back to that, but I'm trying to kind of build my life here in Delaware, and I'm working on that. Because I do spend a lot of time, working, which I love. I love being at the brewery for sure, but there's things I still want to do for me. So I'm still trying to find my places here. Maybe this year will be my year that I do that.
That's right. And you know what? You have plenty of time to figure that out, and just not, do something because you think you should be doing it.
Right. Well, and that's back to the self-care journey. So today I just did things for myself, and it was fabulous.
Right. Those are the best. Absolutely the best. And so also on your website, you have a picture of your family.
I do.
And who are they?
Well, one of them is no longer with us. But My bearded dragon Diggy, she passed back in 2021.
Oh.
I had her, she was a rescue baby. So I had rescued her in North Carolina. So she had made it through 2 moves and 2 states and multiple apartments. And yeah, she was pretty awesome. She was about 15 when she passed.
Wow.
Pretty old for a bearded dragon.
Wow.
But yeah, she was awesome. And she actually loved it here in Delaware because at my parents' house, I mean, I would just put her outside in the front yard and she would just sit in the bushes all day and just get the sun, which was really awesome that we could do that. Yeah, she was pretty cool. It's definitely I miss having her around for sure. But I still have my 2 cats. So the black and white one is Salem, and she was also a rescue from North Carolina. She was the stray at the restaurant I worked at. And so so she joined my family. I took her in January of 2012, and then we moved to New York in June.
Oh wow.
She's been with me since 2012. And then the baby is Tuesday. And I adopted her on Long Island. One of my friend's cat had kittens, and her cat was a purebred Scottish fold with the ears. 3 of the cats had ears, and I made the mistake of going to see them. And Tuesday ended up coming home with me.
Yeah, that sometimes happens.
So that is my family. So
I
yes.
love it. Oh my gosh, I love the picture. And so what's next for you? Anything else? I know, your second book is coming along.
Yeah, so I'm really focused on the writing and building the platform and things like that. But like I mentioned, me and my 2 friends bought land in Tennessee. So that is on the horizon for me. They actually moved last year. They left New York and just packed their car, their trailer, whatever. And he built his own house with his own hands.
Wow.
And so they just officially moved in, I want to say a couple of weeks ago. So a year and a half, they were living in a shipping container. They were roughing it. That's how much they wanted to get started on this new life. I'm hoping to maybe get started on my house there. So I'm trying to figure out what I want, whether I want to do like a barn dominium type of thing or stick built thing. Like I'm not sure yet. And so I need to kind of sit and spend some time with myself and actually really ask myself, like, what kind of a refuge type place do I envision myself being there? But our goal is to kind of have like a holistic wellness center on the land. Like we'd like to have a place where people could come and reconnect with nature and themselves and take some time out of maybe society to just sort of.
And we so need that. I mean, you speak about the self-care. Everybody needs to take a moment for themselves for that self-care.
Right.
Especially coming out of COVID and where we are.
Oh yeah.
You just need.
And I mean, I think a lot of people woke up during COVID, like there was a lot of bad with COVID, but I think there was also a lot of good that came out of it because it gave people a reset. It gave people an opportunity to sort of get back in touch with themselves, like in the quiet. Right. Like there was chaos around, but it's like we were removed from it, because we kind of had to be. That it was like, unless you were actively listening to the news every single day, it's like you kind of had an opportunity to just sort of sit with yourself in stillness. And I think a lot of people made some changes during that time. It kind of opened up to how the truth and reality of how, like, you're in a job that you don't like and you think that job's always going to be there, but then you wake up one day and it's not. And so you're disposable, whether you're doing something you love or you're doing something you hate. Why not do something you love?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we want to create a place where people can come and just sort of be with themselves for just a moment, really get in touch with, what it is that they want to do and what makes them happy, because life is too short to be doing stuff that doesn't make you happy.
Absolutely. 100%.
And we all have the answers within us. We forgot how to listen. COVID was a chance for me to get back to listening to myself. Since then, like, myself won't let me forget. So I've really been, making it more of a priority to take care of myself better, pushing myself to share with others, to maybe encourage them to do the same. We can all help each other.
Absolutely. And that's a great outlook. Lyn McDonald, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
It is the great tree and the ladybug. It is the green light pages. I am looking forward for your second book to come out. Do you want to let everybody know what the name of it is yet?
Sure. Oh, it's called When the Walls Came Down.
And do you have a date when it's going to be?
I don't have a date yet, but I will be sharing my journey on all my socials. So greenlightpages.com, and then Facebook at Greenlight Pages, Instagram at Greenlight Pages, or at Linspirations. So I have the 2 tags for Instagram, hoping that the illustrations will get started next month. Cool. After Christmas and things like that. So she seems excited and ready to go. So
good.
Yeah.
And are those the best places to get in contact with you? Facebook, Instagram?
Yep.
Okay.
Or website. I have a contact on my website as well.
All right. Well, Lyn, thank you so much for taking the time out. I had a great time this evening finding out all about you, and I hope everybody checks you out.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. This has been absolutely wonderful. I feel very honored.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.